Welcome to the notes for the presidency of Thomas Jefferson. I'd like you to take notes as you go through this. The underlined stuff is important. My commentary would be the stuff I usually say in class, so you can rewind and listen to it again because it's so awesome. So it's the advantage of this. Okay, so let's get to the presidency of Thomas Jefferson, 1801 to 1809. Okay, we know his personal background. He's from Virginia. He inherits a lot of land, author of the Declaration of Independence, served as Minister of France, Secretary of State, and Vice President. Okay, we know all that about Thomas Jefferson. Okay, his 1801 inaugural address happened on March 4th, 1801. And what he did was he started the tradition of American presidents trying to unite the country after a bitter election. He said, "We are all Republicans, we are all Federalists," and he was trying to reassure his opponents. He talked about how he wanted to keep government small, and that he believed that limited government and states' rights were important, along with the protection of the civil liberties outlined in the Bill of Rights. Okay, we get to Marbury versus Madison. This is a court case. And the background of this is as Adams was heading out the door when he was president, he made last minute judicial appointments to stack the federal courts with Federalists before he left office. And basically, he wanted these people in the judiciary to stop stuff that Jefferson was doing. So he wanted to make Jefferson's life harder, but he also wanted to leave his legacy of Federalists and Federalist thought in the judiciary. Marbury was one of those judges appointed at the last minute. So it did not go out, the notice did not go out to Marbury before Adams left. It was after Adams appointed, and then the paperwork didn't catch up to him. Okay, so after Jefferson is inaugurated, Secretary of State Madison, who was Jefferson's appointee, did not deliver upholding his appointment. So Marbury sued Madison because Madison was in charge of getting the paperwork through. Okay, the Supreme Court wrote the opinion. John Marshall, the first Chief Justice, wrote the opinion. And he said that the law that Marbury's case depended on was unconstitutional. Okay, the Supreme Court decided that the law was unconstitutional and struck it down. This is the first time this happened. This is crucial because this decision strengthened the judicial branch of the government and gave them equal power to the executive and the legislative branch by establishing what we call judicial review. And judicial review means that the judiciary has the power to declare an act or a law of Congress unconstitutional. So this is where the judiciary gets its teeth, is that they are allowed from Marbury versus Madison to strike down laws that Congress passes or executive orders that the president gives if they believe that they are unconstitutional. So this is a pretty big deal. So it's one of the main features of our system is that the judiciary is 1/3 of the government and that they're powerful and can take on the other branches. All right, so during this time, there's war in Europe, and Europe is, of course, a mess. We have the Napoleonic Wars from 1803 to 1815. This is a series of wars between France and basically everybody else in Europe. Britain was fighting France the whole time because, that's what they do. So Napoleon Bonaparte, he was the leader of France, and he came in after the French Revolution and basically established a dictatorship. And he really liked to fight people, and he started wars so he could spread the French ideas of democracy and liberty all over Europe. All right, but he needed money to fight. This was good for the United States because he wanted to sell Louisiana to the United States. So the U.S. was able to double its size just from what it bought from Napoleon. Now, the bad part of this was as Britain and France are fighting each other, they're both accusing the United States of helping the other side. So this caused a few problems for the United States, which lead to the War of 1812. We have Impressment, the Embargo Act, and the Non-Intercourse Act, and we'll explain those right now. Oh, we'll do the Louisiana Purchase first. Okay, so France needed money for the war against Britain. The original deal was Jefferson wanted to have access to New Orleans and the Mississippi if he could, and he was willing to pay $10 million for this. When our representatives talked to the French, they were like, well, what do you think about buying the whole thing? And our representative said, oh, what do you think about, let's do $15 million. And then the French surprisingly said yes. So they bought it for $15 million, which is 3 cents per acre, and is double the size of the United States. Now, here is Jefferson, a small government guy, who says the government that's best is one that does the least bit of everything. They don't want the government involved in lives. They don't want the government doing big things to make improvements. Remember, he was against Hamilton's plan to make improvements to roads and canals and stuff like that. And here he is. He's looking to buy something that's twice as big as the United States. It will double the United States in size. So the Constitution doesn't mention anything about the United States being able to purchase land from other people. So Jefferson called it a treaty. He believed it was for the good of the country, and this opened up westward expansion. Okay, we've got a video and questions about the Louisiana Purchase. If you could click on that link in the comments, not in the comments, in the description, you could get started with that and come back here when you're done. You can pause now. Okay, welcome back. Okay, so in 1803, we buy the Louisiana Purchase, and we don't know what's there. Basically, there's nobody there. No Europeans are in that territory. So in 1803, they formed an expedition headed by Meriwether Lewis and William Clark. And the goal was to find a water route to the Pacific Ocean, what they called a Northwest Passage. So they wanted to find some way to get to the Pacific without having to sail all the way around South America. Because if you do that, if you're in New York and you start sailing, and you go all around the tip of South America, and then you come back up to San Francisco, that is a long, long trip. So they wanted to find a Northwest Passage. Guess what? Spoiler alert, they didn't find it because it doesn't exist. They had a guide, a teenage girl named Sacagawea, and she acted as an interpreter and a guide on their expedition. Okay, the election of 1804. Jefferson easily wins the second term. There's a video if you're interested. Now, you don't have to watch it, but it's about 3 minutes. It explains what the election of 1804 was like. Jefferson won pretty handily. Okay, impressment. Here's one of the problems that comes from the Napoleonic Wars. Impressment is the practice of forcing people to serve in the Navy or the Army. It's basically kidnapping. Britain was stopping and searching American ships for sailors who had run away from the British Navy and had joined the American Merchant Marine. And Merchant Marine are guys who are who work on ships basically for commercial enterprises. So they're seasoned sailors, and then they work on ships to transport goods back and forth. Okay, so what happened was they forced the sailors to return to British ships. However, they swept up some U.S. soldiers by accident, some U.S. sailors by accident. So these are people who were actually born in the United States, and Britain kidnapped them and made them join the Royal Navy. Okay, click on the video for impressment, and I'll see you back here in a minute. The Embargo Act.